one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
Good morning, Discover Crypto. My name is TJ, and every day on this channel, we show you how to make money with Bitcoin and crypto. It is a scary time on the timeline. I'm seeing all of you guys in the chat. I bought, I sold, I dumped. It is, if you woke up to the prices in the middle of the night or this morning, obviously, Bitcoin will just jump right into it, getting a little dicey out there. I'm joined today with Drew Druth. As you guys know, DZ is on his honeymoon, but Bitcoin coming in at 104 right now. It just seems to keep losing level after level. I know a lot of us watching that 108 level. We talked earlier in the week about the 300-day moving average, which we're more or less sitting on right now. We're getting dangerously close to it. We were talking in the Discord this morning. Many people worried, is it over? Are we going into a multi-year bear market? Banks crashing, war all-time high. Everybody's in line to buy gold. We've got regional banks potentially about to go under, which we're going to be talking about in the show today. But I just wanted to give you guys my take real quick, and then we'll get into the show and the news. That I'm not ready to call this market over yet. I do not think it is a bear market. I do think we're sitting close to some levels that could cause some pain, and we're going to talk about that. This title is not clickbait. This is a warning. It can get much worse, and you need to be able to prepare yourself, for what happens at an 80K Bitcoin, what happens at a under 100K Bitcoin. But the number one thing I would say, and this is part of why we were talking a lot in the office here today, in a lot of ways, we're getting even more bullish because a lot of these signals are clearing out leverage. We're getting signs from the Fed that we're moving back into QE. And again, we're going to talk about that with the regional banks. I think that could start the new liquidity cycle. So I don't think it's over yet. Definitely structurally from a TA perspective, it's not, but that's not all that I look at. And the main thing you should be asking yourself, and you guys have probably heard me say this before, is has your investment thesis on Bitcoin changed? Is the reason you bought Bitcoin, do you still believe in the things you believed when you made your Bitcoin purchase? For me, it has not changed at all. I absolutely still have the same conviction in Bitcoin today that I had yesterday, that I had a week ago, a year ago, 5 years ago. And if anything, that resolve is getting even stronger. Seeing what's going on with the global uncertainty, seeing what's going on with the tensions around the world, the lack of trust between nations. Like, Bitcoin was born and bred for trade wars and trade tensions and for lack of trust among counterparties. And that's exactly what we're experiencing today. I don't think it's a coincidence that we're seeing gold go on a parabolic run. I do think that's somewhat topping out. We're going to be looking at some of that a little bit later today. And really, with these flushes, I think it was a few weeks ago, we were looking at the US, the everyday American has more exposure in the stock market now than any other time in history. We're seeing retail lining up for gold. And in a lot of ways, Max Pain, which is what happens a lot in markets, would be to see a huge shift. Now that people are out, most people are out of crypto and they're thinking crypto's, cooked, and they're going to go buy stocks and equities. They're looking at gold and they're rushing into that. Max Pain is going to be gold pulling back down and equities crashing, and then a rotation back into crypto. So I do want to give you guys some stability. I empathize for you if you have been buying crypto this cycle and you're frustrated. You are not alone. That is part of the process. Prices don't always go up. The saying, the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent, is very real. So I do not recommend, and we've never recommended, going out and buying crypto on a credit card that you have to pay back at the end of the month or 6 months. Part of the way you need to be positioning yourself is for being able to be patient. You don't want to be forced to make market moves that you don't want to make. And so that would be what I would kind of implore you to. I am a buyer right now at this level. I'm planning to make some large buys next week. And if we went lower, I'd be making large buys around that 80K level, or definitely below 80K, which is, again, if you guys remember when we went back to, I think it was 76, 74K level before, that's when I was screaming like, no, this is a buy, this is a buy. And a lot of people out there were scared and saying, oh, it's over, we're going back down below, like Bitcoin's over. And if you guys don't remember, that wasn't that long ago. We had Steady Bug in the chat calling for 50K, 30K. And when the sentiment is bad and everybody's scared, that's when you want to be buying. And I've stuck to that over the years. I've been through worse in crypto. This is actually reminds me a lot of the COVID times in crypto, where there is max uncertainty, and you need to be steady in those moments, check your resolve, and don't get shaken out, because that's
Absolutely.
really what's happening right now. So Drew, what do you have? What are you looking at? How are you feeling?
I feel fantastic. I mean, maybe it's sick, but the idea of cheaper Bitcoin excites me. I'm not gonna lie, cheaper Bitcoin, it does excite me. Yes, I'm insane. Yes, I'm looking at a liquidity sweep right now on Bitcoin. I'm actually thinking about taking a long on. I think that what you're talking about matters quite a bit. We need to kind of examine what is the reason you're in crypto, right? Are you in it to have upward price action and then just sell it back into fiat currency? Or do you have an ethos of finding an alternative to centralized banking controls and getting yourself unexposed to the stresses that the actual banking infrastructure faces right now? TJ, you have some very, very interesting theses that I'm stuck in between right now, because my price oracle, my wife, she incredibly called the local top of 126, right? Came out, talked about it. I'm really in this weird spot where the pressures on the banking infrastructure, the major news today that kind of caught my eye was let's see if we can add this. So the Bitcoin hitting this 15-week low under 105K as the US regional bank woes echo 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And just for a quick recap, I mean, you brought up kind of the sentiment right now, feeling like COVID and the monetary pressures that we're under right now. I was there and we were hosting shows. I think we had the basement going at the time. But the 2023 crash is something that must be examined right now. Everyone's afraid of, extreme lows, and the time frame of the 2023 crash is shown right here with a small little dip, and a lot of people were looking for an entry point on Bitcoin down in the 10K region. Now, what was done was basically stealth QE with a bank term funding program. The cause for the backstop on banking infrastructure is exponentially higher now than it was in 2023, in 2020, and in 2008. It's shown right here. This is my favorite chart in crypto. And the losses on commercial real estate securities and how underwater banks are actually right now. This is the FDIC website.
Yeah. Before we get into all this, because this is good stuff and I definitely want to talk about it, but I want to talk with the chat a little bit here, because I'm seeing a lot of comments rolling in, and we've been talking about this a lot for the last couple of weeks, really leading into October. Obviously, 4-year cycle says October should be the top. This was the date DZ said in 2022, 16K is the bottom. We came up with this date, basically October 15th, 2025 would be the top. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about 4-year cycle in the chat right now. And that is the big question that we're in. Every time we get near a top, every time we get through the 4-year cycle, this time is different. I realize that's partially what I'm alluding to right now, that this time is different. But I want to know, chat, what do you think? Put it in a 4-year cycle, or no if you don't think the 4-year cycle is intact. So 4-year cycle if you think it's going to be intact, and that was the top of Bitcoin, and we're heading back into a bear market, and we will see a bear market for a year, and then a boring market for another year, a slow grind, and then we're back to business in 2029. I want to kind of know who in the chat is, yes, 4-year cycle is still intact, we're heading back into a bear market, see you guys in 4 years, or no, it's not intact, it's more the liquidity cycle, and we will recover with more money printing later this year or even in 2026. So
That's the $1 million question right there.
million dollar question for retail, $1 billion question for institutions, $1 trillion questions for nations and central banks. So
Mhm.
Harry Radford says, what cycle? Brian D says, no freaking way. Muted bear market. 4-year cycle slightly extended due to more. Okay, so it's very mixed. One person 4-year cycle, 4-year cycle still intact. There is no cycle anymore. We will do what you're saying about printing, but this is next cycle strategy for outflows. So it's very mixed in the chat. It's very unknown. Nobody really seems to have a clear direction.
Mass confusion, right?
And I'll be honest, it's tough for me because I have built my wealth on the 4-year cycle. I'm a huge believer in the 4-year cycle. Even some of our team, we were talking this morning, like he said, hey, I stuck to my guns. I said I was going to sell in October. I sold in October. I'm completely out of the market. Don't really care if it dips again. The steady bug cycle. There you go from DZ's nuts.
I was expecting to see him on the show today. I mean, he's probably going to come back.
No, I'm sure he's doing fine wherever he is. But it's tough, because like I said, I have been a huge believer, huge proponent. I've taught the 4-year cycle to so many people. I've preached it, eat, slept, breathed it. But I really do believe it's over, like that we're out of that season. When BlackRock came into the game, when big money came into the game, the structure has felt much more like what the S&P is like. My belief is that it is tied to the liquidity cycle. We are seeing the Fed starting to pivot. Jerome Powell said they're going to be ending QT. They're not saying they're starting QE yet, but they have to end QT first. And I think once we start to see the Fed start to expand their balance sheet a little bit more, we are getting more rate cuts later this year. We're printing $3.5 trillion. And so as that new money pours in, I do believe we're going to be seeing, a bullish price action for Bitcoin.
Mhm.
The question is, in other people's mind, that I would say the counter argument for the 4-year cycle would be, okay, 4-year cycle is still intact. We're about to have a violent crash back down to 70K. And then we'll grind back up when the new money gets printed again. But we're still going down to 70K, which again, if you follow 4-year cycle theory, previous all-time high, roughly, 68, 69, 70K, somewhere in that range would be where we should kind of bottom out. And again, I'm good with either one because I'm not overexposed. I'm not over leveraged. If we went back to 70K, I'd be buying big time and waiting for us to go back up to 300. My gut says, and I know that's if you guys are on X, you guys, get the lore there with what your gut says, but gut says 4-year cycle is dead, and we will see a bullish 2026 with the money printing. And now let's talk about why and kind of back that thesis up a little.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, visually, I think it's helpful to just start and look at Bitcoin on a monthly chart basis. This drawdown that you're just talking about, if we do top the top end of the previous high, which is something that was super easy for me to do as a crypto trader last cycle, right? And it was when I saw Bitcoin drop to this previous all-time high, about 19, in this range was just absolute juice, right? I was just printing money. You get my flow. Now, if I am thinking that I'm going to be able to out-trade BlackRock and basically asset managers that oversee 20, 30 trillion dollars, I am fooling myself. I do structurally feel that this is a stair step up and to the right in an S&P style design. During bull markets, it's normal to have multiple 20 to 30% pullbacks, flushing out that liquidity. Exchanges don't want you riding to the moon on 100x leverage on a Bitcoin trade. They are going to hunt those people as viciously as they can. And we've seen it with Maki Brother. I think it was James Wynn. These major accounts getting flushed out. And now this tiny little blip from a previous all-time high has people absolutely losing their minds. The stresses that actually make me bullish and why I'm in crypto is because of how underwater the banking infrastructure actually is. Now, the great print of 2020, it happened right at about this line right here. Okay, so the great print that y'all remember, the stimmy checks, the quantitative easing on hyperdrive, printing over half of all dollars in circulation and kicking us down the road of the inflationary path we're on right now is actually right here. But the reason to print was actually in the middle of 2018. Banks, the US government, and all the in betweens knew that they needed to essentially double the money supply in the middle of 2018. Conveniently enough, they had the reason to do so in the news headlines in 2020. Now, if you notice where we are right now is exponentially worse. And TJ, that note that you shared with me, I actually had it covered as well. The $7 trillion in FHA loans from H-1B visas
Oh
just
yeah,
walking out the door, right?
yeah,
I think people underestimate the $120 trillion market of real estate in the United States and how
absolutely,
important it is to keep it
absolutely.
moving.
Yeah.
You're very versed in real estate. Like I own, and I'm able to time out previously, low points where I could feel really, really good about the interest rate I was getting. But right now, the reason to print is exponentially higher than really I've ever seen in America's history. And we have midterms coming up, right?
Absolutely. And I've got this comment from Antonius about the Goldman Sachs statement, warning of a global credit crisis among a 5 trillion private lending boom. I mean, that a lot of the credit that's been going on, a lot of the loans that have been going on, whether it's student debt or mortgages for people that may or may not be able to repay those, free mortgages, basically.
Mhm.
Uh, it's used to inflate a balance sheet of a system so that way they can go get more debt. Obviously, we're in a debt-based system. The debt problem is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Everybody likes to focus on the US national debt, but there is debt everywhere. And if you think there's leverage in crypto, there's way more leverage in the traditional system, and it's way more contagion going on and intertwined and all these different products that are interwoven. So yeah, I definitely think we're coming to a precipice where either they print a ton of money or it breaks. And every time in the past, they've chosen print a ton of money. And that was, I think, what the Fed is alluding to. I do think that's what we're heading towards right now. Definitely going to see more rate cuts, definitely going to see some QE in 2026. And yes, I believe, again, the big beautiful bill, $3.5 trillion, that's already slated to be printed in
Right.
2026. They're talking about 3 more spending bills in 2026, all with potentially north of $1 trillion each. That's several trillion dollars being printed next year. I do think we will see another stimulus next year and some helicopter money being dropped on the citizens. Like, here you go. We just, maybe doubled your money supply again, but here's $2,000. Don't spend it all in one place. Good luck buying groceries in 2028. But
Well, that's the funny part is people are looking for a top to sell Bitcoin for cash, right?
I know.
And
And that's, yeah, people don't realize you can't exit the system. There is no take money off the table. If you're selling your Bitcoin, you're either buying dollars
Mhm,
or you're buying equities, hopefully, or gold or something else, but
mhm,
you do not want to be in dollars. I literally was doing a presentation yesterday. Dollars had its worst year since 1973. It
right.
ain't getting better for the dollar. And if you think this trade war stuff is going to help it, it's not. Now other fiat currencies are getting hurt worse. And that's why we're seeing these asset explosions. That's why we're seeing gold go on a parabolic bull run.
Mhm.
But it's not, I see stuff. I see people in the chat, and some people are definitely mad. And it's like, I hate to say this, but the truth is, I've been doing this long enough to know, like, when people are starting to get mad at us,
Yeah.
that's usually a really good buying signal. Like when they're like, these guys don't know anything. It's like, okay, these are definitely people that haven't been here very long, and they're probably down bad, and they're probably angry at crypto and mad at the world.
Mm,
And this is probably a good entry right here. And that's when I can tell it's time for me to be buying. So
mhm.
I see a lot of that in the chat today. It's over. Good luck buying bread with Bitcoin, somebody said. And it's like, I've got bread. I don't, I'm not too worried about that. So
Yeah,
uh,
that is something I would never be changing my Bitcoin out for bread, right?
well, and
Absolutely not.
even look at this. Like, traditionally, you can use some of the most basic indicator. Fear and greed. Greed is in the 20s. Like, good time to buy. Almost every single time the fear and greed index gets down to this level in the 20s, like, these are good buy zones. Extreme fears, best buy zones. Like, I don't know. It's just these to me. 100K is a good time to buy. Again, if it goes to 80K, I'm buying more. If you guys think it's going to 30K, good luck. But I've lived through. Again, it reminds me a lot of COVID. And
Yeah.
early on in COVID, Bitcoin was sitting around 10K and it dropped to 7K, and everybody was freaking out, saying, "Oh, this is terrible. It can't go any like this is bad. If it goes any lower, it might go. It might not come back." And then it went from 7K to 3,500, basically
Yeah.
halved again. Now didn't stay down there very long. It recovered quickly, and a lot of the sentiment that's happening right now feels very similar. And to your point, the system was at the exact same point of a liquidity crisis in COVID
Mhm.
as it is right now. It is
Mhm.
about to break. The banks, the regional banks are about to go under. That speech that Powell did, that kind of rugged you guys, where he made that one statement when he basically came out in a 2-minute pre-recorded thing and said, we need to support the regional banks,
That was one of my
guys.
best shows, though, right? For some reason, I don't understand why. It was weird, but
But that was the signal. I mean, he was basically saying, like, he was saying without saying, like, these things are about to go under. We
Mhm.
need to do something. And they will do something, in my opinion.
Well, then you add the 10 to 20 trillion dollars we're going to print for AI data centers and power generation, right? I mean, the dollar. Someone, I think it's DCA and Prey thinks that, are you actually assuming the DXY goes down? Yes, I think that they're going to print 10 to 20 trillion dollars over the next decade, and it is going to absolutely send us near the edge of what some would call hyperinflation. Now, this is essentially what's going on right now. I feel like with Trump, China, Russia, you got aliens over here. It's a DDoS attack on the average American's or person's ability to pay attention to what actually matters. This is an absolutely insane stat that came out of Polymarket today. There's a 6% chance on Polymarket we see aliens this year, and a 5% chance that we see Bitcoin hit $200,000 before the end of the year. You heard that right. Now, aliens, I think, are way less likely than Bitcoin essentially popping up to the top end of Fibonacci extension of a generalized bull market, right? I mean, we're talking about a move right now. If we were to pump by, it's a 100% pump. We've seen this happen within a bull market, a pullback of 30%, and then an absolute skyrocket. But we are heading into the unknown, TJ. And this is where Bitcoin has never experienced stagflation. The 70s that you're mentioning, the macroeconomic stresses and the reason for printing and devaluation of dollars, it's never been through this before, but we are there right now. And the gold fever pitch that's going on right now is kind of showing that to me. That's exactly where we are.
Absolutely. And I did forget, we didn't even actually cover this, so we should probably look at the carnage in the market a little bit more. I touched on it for a second, but
Yeah.
I mean, basically today, just briefly, we're overall market cap, the whole market cap of crypto down 6%, but Bitcoin alone down 4%, Ethereum at 3,700, XRP back at 227, Solana, under 180. So if you pull up the biggest losers, I mean, nothing, just for perspective. Anytime you're seeing stable coins at the top, that's not a good day for crypto. But Aster crushed, Aave down bad, Morpho down bad, Arrow down bad. And I do want to say, guys, like, I hold Morpho, I hold Arrow, I hold Aster, so I don't believe, don't let me fool you that I'm immune to this. Like, yours definitely, portfolio is down a lot today. Anything I hold in altcoins obviously has been crushed these last couple of weeks. Now, I'm not selling it. I mean, I still have some same conviction. I do think Aerodrome is going to come back. I do think Morpho is a good product. I do think Aave is a good product. I still have a very strong belief in DeFi. And that's why I was saying the number one thing you guys need to do is get yourself into a position where you can be patient in crypto. Curve crushed, Hyperliquid down, Swede down, Aptos, Render. I mean, I guarantee Chainlink back at $16. Pick your favorite coin.
Yeah.
And it's been beaten up these last couple of weeks. I mean, it's no joke when people say, the sellers are getting exhausted. The sellers do not look exhausted at all. Black is down dramatically. Yeah, I see you there, Cole. Now, again, I've been just running a full range pool on that, but it still earns. But it's about, I mean, you want to see a bad looking chart.
Let's check it out. I mean, I want to check it out. The Black token,
crushed.
It's interesting its relationship in the AVAX ecosystem, because so many coins are kind of tethered to it, right? So the internal AVAX ecosystem is really feeling the pain from this.
I mean, AVAX itself is down, but I mean, there's Black Hole. I mean, it's just been down with no bottom in sight. And again, I will give you that all of this feels like the beginning of a bear market.
Mhm.
Don't get me wrong. And
Mhm.
if you are saying it's the beginning of a bear market, that's fine. If you want to sell all your altcoins for Bitcoin right here, I wouldn't fault you if that was your choice. Now, me personally, I'm holding altcoins here. I'm not necessarily buying more altcoins. I would be buying more Bitcoin at these levels. I do think altcoins will recover and when they do print all this money and we go back into risk on. But I just wanted to at least cover and say, like, I get it. I understand people are in pain out there. I'm not trying to make light of that. I'm just saying I've experienced a lot of these dips before, and the sentiment right now feels very near a bottom and
Yeah.
and there's a lot of other, I think the government shutdown is playing a role in this thing. I think the market, some of the legislation being held up, some of the ETFs being held up.
The trade war, right? I mean, there's so many things.
And you could argue it's creating very, very good entries for institutions and Wall Street that is creating all of these products. They want to launch an ETF and buy a ton of this stuff at a low level and then let it go up. So again, I think the liquidity and the money printing has more to do with it than almost anything. So yeah.
I love this chat so much. We got to look at the charts here, and we got a
Yeah.
lot of opinions from some good experts. Let's look at this first.
Oh, yeah.
Bitcoin.
This will scare you. Yeah.
This, we'll talk about the scary stuff first. Bitcoin price spike followed by decreasing demand, just like last cycle. You are getting lower highs in terms of the demand here in the green, and the price continually grinding up. So again, we are going into the unknown, right? We've never had a structure on Bitcoin that sits quite like it is right now. It's below the 200-day moving average, just above the 365-day rather. Holding 99.9 is a key to avoiding further downside, according to Glassnode. And where we are sitting in terms of the actual chart, I know you had mentioned the 300-day simple moving average.
Yeah, I wanted to pull that up because DZ and I were literally talking about this the day before yesterday, that this is a very, very, very key level to hold.
Right.
I saw somebody else up here saying, back-to-back weeks under the 55 weeks. So 300-day, 50-week moving average, obviously very similar time frames. Both, a lot of people look at the 50-week moving average, but 300-day moving average, very similar. And if we close below this level, you can go look in the past. It happened it has sustained below it. Like you need to, I don't know if you're on daily candles or weekly candles.
Yeah, we can go back and check it out here.
You can see right there, once it kind of fell below and then it acted as resistance right there.
Yep.
That was the beginning of the bear market, and it was a violent bear market, and it was very hard to get back above it. And then once we did, it starts to act like support. So somebody asked, can we go lower and the bull market remain intact? Yes, we can, but not much. And if we start closing below 100K and sustaining below 100K, because I think that's kind of the key level. It's like 102 or 100, kind of depending a little bit on how you draw your lines. I'm much more of a macro person than a chart person, but it is interesting when you get confluence on a chart like this. And if we lose these levels, it can take a long time to recover them. So that's why the title isn't, we are at very close to a bad point. And if we fall off 100K, I expect to see 80K, potentially not in somewhere in the mid. People have these like 90 to 94K ranges. We could potentially have some bounce points, but I think they would be temporary on the way to a lower point. I'm still holding. I still do not think we're going into a sustained bear market, but I do believe, I think Kelly mentioned it at the top of the show, we will see a violent correction that shakes out many people and leads them to believe we are in a bear market. And then we grind back up in 2026 with all the money printing. And that's when you can officially say the 4-year cycle is over, when it changes. That's something I've been saying this whole time. 4-year cycle is intact until it isn't. It is still here until it breaks. You cannot say it's broken until we see some positive price action in 2026. We could still have a bullish Q4 all the way up to 150K and then start to fall down even more, and 4-year cycle would still be intact until we see it rebound in 2026. I do believe that will happen, but you can't say it with certainty until it actually does.
Right. And I do like the Pi cycle top indicator. I know DZ brought up some pretty interesting notes about the price of Bitcoin going higher and kind of changing the 350-day moving average times two.
Mhm.
Essentially, though, I mean, this washout, in my opinion, is creating plenty of room to party in 2026. I hate to, basically make people think that metrics don't matter. I think the Pi cycle top indicator matters a lot still to me personally because it calls out the actual buying power tops of Bitcoin. And where things sit right now, this recent washout, money flow barely coming down on the weekly, right? I mean, this is basically a scratch in terms of money flow. Yes, it's a red dot. Yes, we're getting a washout. That 300-day moving average, we are sitting right on the top of it right now, but we've hit this 4 times now during this bull market. And I don't think that I'm going to be able to outtrade BlackRock on a basic 4-year cycle, sell in October type process, especially with the midterms coming up, especially with this amount of losses sitting on banks. And there's another portion of this, the quarterly credit loss provisions. You can see 2020 major spike. The baseline buildup of these credit loss provisions is stronger than we've ever seen it before in terms of the FDIC and their worries. There's a lot of reasons for the government to print and backstop the U.S. economy. House advisor for the White House, Hassett, came out and said that 3 Fed rate cuts would be a good start.
Mhm.
I'm actually kind of thinking 4 rate cuts at about 25 base points makes sense. You don't want to shock the system by doing a 50 base point cut, but I could see 25 base points being shaved off over the course of the end of this year into next year, and then basically having to batten down the hatches for paying the price for cutting interest rates into inflation.
Well, I think that that's going to happen. I mean, the inflation isn't going away for
Mm.
sure. I think I wouldn't surprise me to see 150 basis point cut this year and then a bunch of 25 basis point cuts. But
That terrifies me. That terrifies me.
yeah, I mean that's
That's
just kind of in them admitting that that it's worse than
right.
they wanted to admit previously. But on the regional bank things, I mean, from Arthur Hayes here, I agree with this. Bitcoin on sale. If this U.S. regional bank wobble grows to crisis, be ready for a 2023 like bailout, which is exactly what you were just pointing at, and then
Mhm.
go shopping, assuming you have some spare capital. I got my list. What's on yours? And it's bail out the banks and return to QE, and then we're heading back to new all-time highs. I do believe that is a scenario that is 100% in play because they can't afford to let the whole system crumble.
Right.
And so. Again, I want to ask the chat, like, what do you guys think? Where is it that you pack up and go home? I'm a permeable. I'm never leaving this space. I mean, I'm not. It's the Wolf of Wall Street. Like, I'm not leaving. We're not going anywhere. If Bitcoin price goes down, I'm buying more. And I do again. Don't quit your day job. If you were thinking about quitting and trading crypto full time, keep money rolling in so you have money to buy dips. Do not leverage your house and not have a plan on how you're going to pay it back without relying on a crypto pump. You need to have some stability in your life. But let me see let's see, ride or die time for me. Still mining fiat full time. Only a fool is a permeable. Yeah, well, I've heard that before. I'm doing all right. 9 more years.
You say it's so candid. Like I got picked up Bitcoin for $4,000, and like I'm sitting here watching people like freak out about this.
Right. Yeah.
Stumble. It's insane.
Yeah. People told me I was a fool to believe in it at 7K and at 4K and at 10K and at 20K and at 60K and at 80K and at 100K. And, I still believe in it, call me crazy.
They're watching the gold chart, man. They feel like they missed out and like the money just went to gold. I saw this from DeFi Investor. Bitcoin performance this year, and this was before even the big crash that we just had this morning, was plus 13% on the year. Gold performance up by 64%. All we had to do in 2025 is outperform 99% of altcoins by buying gold. What an S cycle. Now, gold is kind of worrisome for me, TJ, because I'm seeing kind of top-ish signals from gold, dare I say.
Mm-hmm.
This type of stuff, when I see a bunch of retails retail peeps lining up to buy gold at extreme all-time highs, it makes me think that maybe gold's ready to calm down a little bit sooner than I originally thought it was. And it is pulling back to a degree right now from 43.8 down to about 42.4 here. Not much of a haircut yet, but the historic movement of gold in the reaction to stagflation is pretty much spot on to what you see here. I'll go to the monthly to show it better, but essentially, when a market comes to a standstill, housing, essentially your economy stops moving forward, inflation increases, and you cut interest rates into inflationary increase from political pressure. This is what gold did last time. And it was a very violent 2 or 3 months on gold to the upside, but then a 15-year bear market, right? So there has been a lot of people that have been buying gold and holding it through this time frame, and yes, they made an absolute killing if you were buying it in 2004, but it took them quite some time to get this upside, right? And essentially what we've seen since this takeoff moment is gold move from 2000 up to about $4,200, 115% increase. But compared to the upside that I can find in crypto, this is but a scratch, right? And I do, seeing the timeline this morning, I implore people to be happy with outpacing inflation in altcoins, right? When we get greedy, when we go after those $5 to $100,000 type plays on meme coins, and we just buy 1,000 meme coins to try to hit something like that, basically playing the lotto, I feel like that's where people's expectations are really kind of way too high. They're reaching way too high, and you need to just focus on outpacing inflation and housing that value. And I saw a lot of interesting comments of what crypto project would you be willing to hold into a bear market? Is it just Bitcoin? Would you sell Bitcoin and try to catch the next low? Me personally, I'm fine round tripping Bitcoin and Chainlink as things sit right now. Those are the only two projects that I'd be okay round tripping in this current situation.
Yeah, for me, I might consider round tripping some of the DeFi related things because I'm such a big believer in that. I do believe traditional finance is going to be moving towards that. I have a strong belief in Aave and some of those airdrome type plays. But I did, while we were talking about gold, I do agree with Booger Slots here. Banks and governments are what keep gold high, not retail. And it's true. I mean, really what we're seeing is central banks buying a lot of Bitcoin. We're seeing governments moving out of holding each other's debt into buying Bitcoin, which again, that's part of why I'm so bullish on where we're heading with Bitcoin, because that is foreshadowed. That is setting the stage of like, okay, they have decided they do not trust the system anymore. They do not trust fiat. They do not trust government debt, and money is leaving government debt and going into gold. What are they going to do on that gold? They're going to sit on it. They're not going to do anything with it. They're going to hold it. They're going to try to, spend a lot of money to custody it and then to loan against it. And then as soon as they're done accumulating that, they're going to be accumulating Bitcoin, which is something else that they can loan against. And that's part of what Michael Saylor's doing, and MicroStrategy and the US with their accumulation or confiscation to build their, strategic reserve.
That's how I know we're on the right path. Right?
Exactly.
If they are intent on confiscating it just the same way that they were intent on confiscating gold before going to the gold standard in 1933, we're on the right path.
Absolutely.
Very strong.
And Bitcoin does have some advantages over gold. They both store value very well. They both have a limited supply. Like, I do not fault anybody for holding gold, but I could say if you're retail, you probably don't actually hold it. You probably hold some paper representation of it. So because the challenge with gold is it's hard to custody and it's hard to move, where Bitcoin is easy to custody and easy to move. So I do believe we will see a rotation once they're done accumulating gold. A lot of these treasury companies are also getting crushed right now, and I think I'll be real interested to see if Michael Saylor comes out with a buy. It's so interesting that when prices are at all-time highs, it seems like he's making his biggest buys ever. And then we get these big, on sale opportunities. And he's like, I'll buy 20 million. And it's like, dude, you were buying $1 billion. What happened? Why don't you buy $1 billion at these levels?
Right.
Right. So, again, all of this stuff, macro thesis, when in doubt, zoom out. And if you're, again, I'm more of a macro guy than a chart guy, but even if you want to see your chart structures be intact, zoom out to the weekly. Don't zoom in to the hourly or the 4 hour or the daily. Even like the more you zoom out, the more you're like, oh yeah, that's a bullish structure. It's clearly heading up in the long term.
Mhm.
I still believe with every full-heartedly, we will see $1 million Bitcoin in the 2030s. We could likely see a $10 million plus Bitcoin in the 2040s. Let's see, Chance Music. If I was the richest financial institutions in the world, I'd suppress the market till around QE and then make sure the tariff reversed on November 5th. Yeah, and
Yeah.
might even shut the government down for a little while to create even a little bit more chaos, a little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
more cover before they pass all this
It's
legislation.
the art of the deal, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and you could say what you want. Some people love Trump, some people hate Trump, but if you don't think people are not squeezing every last bit out of taking advantage of what they can do before it becomes illegal in these markets, then you're not paying attention.
Mhm.
Incentives are there. There's money to be made. They're going to pass regulation that makes it harder to do some of the stuff that bad actors are doing. But why do you think Binance is trying to crash the market right now and taking advantage of everything they can do? Because they can get away with it right now, probably for a couple more months before they really have the full weight of governments on top of them for doing that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
we're in unprecedented times. With trade volatility, with tech wars going on. Crypto's a 24/7 market. There's a huge incentive to exploit it. And that's what we're seeing. Really, what this is institutions and nation states coming into the crypto ecosystem. And nation states do not play fair. They create laws, they shut people down, they steal stuff from people, they do everything they can to stay in power. And I think that's what we're witnessing right now.
Yeah. It almost felt like, when that massive crash and that liquidity pull from Binance, the stress test on ENA, Athena, and then the connection to Aave and World Liberty Fi and the bags there within felt like a shot across the bow against the Trump family. Then we have Trump with this tariff conversation. Trump said that no, when he was asked if China tariffs are actually going to have a long-term stance, he said no, and came out and announced that he's actually going to meet with President Xi in 2 weeks. Things were going to be fine with China, and then the markets start to calm down a little bit. Do not underestimate the ego of Donald J. Trump. Please do not underestimate the ego. This is a great write-up from Mert. What you fail to understand here is the American economy for Trump is what a shitcoin is to an underwater dev. When things are looking bad, the dev will bull post indefinitely until prices go up again. There will be no financial crisis while Trump has internet access. He has one of the biggest egos on the planet. And if we think that Trump is going to not use every single mechanism of pressure he has available to him, which he has quite a bit as the president of the United States, to push us into quantitative easing and kicking this economy into a positive sentiment into midterm elections in 2026, we are fooling ourselves. These are the mechanics of our current scenario that are much different than any 4-year cycle we've ever seen before. So, with that being said, I understand it's scary, but I doubt that Trump is going to walk away from this a loser. Now, this is a great write-up from Caleb Franzen. For 3 years, every period of it's so over and we're never coming back was promptly followed by we're so back. If you want to bet that this time is going to be different, be my guest. Instead, I'll just accept that more short-term volatility and discomfort is likely before everyone is happy again and singing Kumbaya. Definitely what it feels like to me. I'm really not too concerned. People, they say, oh, you're going to round trip your alts again. Yeah, I round tripped Chainlink when I bought it for $1.90. It went up to $50 and then down to $5. I bought more at $5. Now we go up to whatever 30 so far. We're back down to 16. And I am of the opinion that this scenario is quite different than we've ever seen. Slap the like button also. Sally Stacks, great shout out there. Just a quick highlight that there is more to Bitcoin. It's legacy and family.
Well, let's talk about that in just a second. But I do want, let's in the chat, I just want to know because it's easy for us to say, yeah, we can round trip these bags and we're not worried about doing it. We've got savings, we've got capital, we've got stuff coming in. But again, a lot of people aren't necessarily in that same position. I want to be sensitive to that. So if you are, like, I just put it in the chat, like if you hold more Bitcoin or more altcoins than Bitcoin, put a 1 in the chat. If you hold more Bitcoin than or I guess put altcoins or Bitcoin. If you hold more altcoins, put altcoin. If you hold more Bitcoin, put BTC. I'm just curious to know if you're holding more altcoins or more Bitcoin, because if people are holding more altcoins, obviously if you've been very exposed to altcoins, this has been a pretty tough cycle. You were promised a bull market, you were promised October, you were promised a bullish Q4. And here it comes rolling in. It's a lot of altcoins. And that's kind of what I was thinking. 50-50. I'm happy to see that. That's obviously we recommend. I have a lot of altcoins, but I also have a ton of Bitcoin. And it's much easier to say I'm going to ride this out when you've got money coming in and you've got a lot of savings. So if you can't, let's just talk about it, from a different perspective. Let's assume you couldn't afford to ride out your bags and you're looking at this market right now and you have to say pay a debt back by February 2026 or January 15th 2026. We'll just make an arbitrary thing up. How would you play your altcoins right now? Would you sell them right here? Would you hold in the short term? Do you believe we'll be higher on altcoins November, December than we are right now today? And like, this is against all the advice I just gave of zoom out and think long term and don't change your thesis. Like, well, we're going to throw all that out the window, even though that is good advice. And I want you to get there, but assuming you're not there, assuming you have to make some moves, what would you do with your altcoins right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
I'm getting FOMO to buy more, and I rarely feel like buying. You know what I mean? That's just me, though. It's nothing that
so if you had say you had put $10,000 into crypto this year, your portfolio is sitting at $6,000 right now, and you've got to pay, say $7,000 next year, and you got $2,000 on the sideline. You're not selling your altcoins so you can pay that debt. You're saying you got to risk it for the biscuit. I'm putting that last $2,000 in and riding it back up.
Oh, absolutely. Right? I mean, I've only learned to lean into the danger, right? And leaning into the danger for the last 6 years is the only way that I've been able to position the family well, right? And the family structure is Bitcoin. I don't even think of that bag when in terms of where the markets are going, because that's the long-term bag. That's for the kids. It's for the family. What's on the front lines right now is largely Chainlink, right? I battened down the hatches heavily before this massive crash into Morpho, Aerodrome, and Chainlink. Basically, I'm very, very focused on those things for a myriad of different reasons. But really, when you see so many X-shills come out and they're talking about the next big thing, people go chase the next big thing, and then it pulls back by 70% immediately. You do have to be really, really careful. I did see a side note that X is actually going to be displaying usernames in their country of origin, which I think is going to help kind of wash out some of the G process. But look what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. You're going to run into the account that was like this, slowly morph into what it actually is. Then people will kind of see a little bit what's behind the curtain there. I think it's actually going to be healthy, right? It's just, don't get so heavily enamored on making it all back in a single trade. I'm sure Maki Brother has more standing, but holy God, this is a nightmarish tale. He sold 1.64 million, whatever this is, Pinkster, worth like 119K at a loss of 214,000. We lost 65% on a pretty substantial bag. He deposited 47 ETH worth $186,000 to Hyperliquid to increase his long position. And it is a really quick way to be poor very quickly. And you can go from, I've seen it. I've seen people,
leverage trading you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, leverage trading and letting your ego and your megalomania take over. If you're, someone that has made tens of millions of dollars and you kind of lose sight of what actually matters in the long-term vision, and you're not thinking about what your kids are going to benefit from what you're doing right now off of, right? If you're not having that long-term vision of what true value is, then it's a very, very fast way to fall down a very dark path. And I just want people to have a base plan.
I agree. And you can get back to, I know I stopped you right before you were going to talk about the legacy mindset, because I do think that's important. And I will say that's one of my favorite things about Hyperliquid is it does all the on-chain trading shows how bad a lot of people are at trading, how often they get wrecked, and how bad revenge trading is. And the whole we're going to make it all back in one trade. Like that doesn't happen for most people.
Right.
And they've even if these people that had these crazy good entries, if you've been holding them open, trying to ride it all to Valhalla, you've already been wrecked on that too. So, it's trading, leverage trading specifically is tough. I do think, again, comfy in spot is a meme for a reason, because a lot of people are comfy in spot. And again, when in doubt, zoom out. I do think there's a lot of upside coming still. My thesis hasn't changed, but you had a great point that you got to think beyond yourself. You got to think beyond your own ego. And many people get tied, their emotion. Anytime you're dealing with money, you're going to have emotions tied to it. And part of being a good investor is learning to separate your emotions from the money. And like I said, I could see it in here when people come in and get very upset. I can tell, again, they're very emotionally tied to their wins and losses. So,
and with that, I want to say something. The most dangerous and effective person in the world is someone who basically shows up every day, is hyper focused, and even when the rewards are not guaranteed, when you're going into a risky situation, your potential is completely determined by the amount of uncertainty that you're able to tolerate, right? How long you can tolerate that uncertainty for. If it was easy, then everyone would do it and everyone would make massive, massive gains. It's only the people that have enough conviction to actually lean in when things look bad, take advantage of that fear, that end up well up over the long term, right? So that is something that I just wanted to make a side note of. And really, comfy in spot. I love it. I really think that the reason why I am long-term just able to hold good bags of Chainlink and Bitcoin, really Bitcoin being the groundwork. Ethereum, I completely understand why. Like it's almost like Morpho and Aerodrome are my versions of Ethereum for some reason in my mind. It's almost like Coinbase has hijacked some of what Ethereum does and is expanding it onto their own network.
Well, and it fits the barbell method that DZ and I talk about a lot, where you've got your conservative side, and rather than play in the mid, you go from your conservative side is Bitcoin and Chainlink, and then you're actually going on a little bit more high risk with Morpho and Arrow, but that actually gives you a higher upside, obviously, with that higher risk. So
what was aggravating though, I did a analysis on my Twitter account on all the projects that I've called out and how down or up those projects are. And the only project that drug me down until I'm like negative 13% or something within the year total is Cardano. Okay. Cardano is the one thing that, everything else is doing great. Right. So it is what it is.
With ICP, we see you in here. I know you guys love ICP. I do not. So best of luck to you. That's all.
Yeah, I made a lot of money with ICP in 2024. And when you have a 3 to 4x take profits, you're gonna feel like an idiot. You're gonna feel like an idiot when you take those profits. People are gonna be like, "What are you talking about? ICP is only at $16. It's gonna go to $50 for sure." And I was like, looking at it, I bought it for 3. I sold it for 16.5. That is a great, great upside, even on vaporware, right? So when I see those movements, I'm gonna feel like a fool when I'm taking profits on them. But you know what? I didn't get into these altcoins to basically just join a club where everyone can feel like my friend. I get into these altcoins so that there's upside and risky potential to the upside, right? I want to just say this and talk about Cardano a little bit. This is a post from Lily Brody. Dear Cardano devs, stop thinking like a nerd and start thinking like a user. Build dApps with simple user interfaces and a few useful features, right? Don't overload them. things real people will actually use sincerely everywhere. This struck me very strongly. DZ, BJ, geniuses in life. I mean, you know, in TJ, obviously, highly intelligent. You have a very very early entry on Cardano.
That's
Same
the
with
only reason I'm still with it.
right, and
Because I agree with that 100%. Like it is not it's from an academic standpoint, you know, everything's theory and academics, and when you get into the real world, it's great. The governance model is great. There's very good things about Cardano, but it's not easy to use. It's not easy to interface with. It is not easy to work with other dApps in other blockchain applications. One of the best examples I heard that was like, yeah, it's like you've got everybody over here making these, you know, languages, and they're, you know, or they're speaking these different languages and they're working together. And these people are, you know, all these people speak English and all these people speak Spanish. And Cardano's over here and they're going to code everything in Latin because it's a better language. And it's like, yeah, you might be right. It might be a better language, but nobody friggin' speaks it. So it's not really helping anybody. And I feel like that is kind of the core problem with the programming language and the way it doesn't necessarily interface. Now, again, what's kept me involved is that it does operate on a UTXO model like Bitcoin. And if they can find a way to do Bitcoin DeFi, which I think they've been striving towards, that will be Cardano's saving grace. If they can't, I think it will slowly fade over time. But yeah, I mean, I'm still holding it because, yeah, I had really, really, really low entry. But I'll be honest, like most of my altcoins, when I see the next pump I see, I'm rolling almost everything back into Bitcoin.
Yeah. That's it. I want to check out. Thanks for the super chat. Mahroni, Port BTC, ETH, both in profit, not selling BTC. ADA 68-cent average and Ondo 78-cent average, not in profit. I did take 40% of my initials out of Ondo.
Nice. I see a lot of questions about Ondo coming in too. Is it still a thing? And is it you don't hold any Ondo, do you?
I keep a little bit, but I got out, dude. Because I knew it was gonna hit its head against $1. I knew there's more pain, and I don't want to be too diversified and overexposed. Seeing the interest in AI, raw materials, rare earth metals, all of these alt season type graphs on Wall Street, it's interesting, and I kind of feel like we're too diversified. There's too many altcoins. Putting in the entire Wall Street sector on chain sounds like a psyop to me when I just saw Binance pull liquidity and send altcoins down by 80% in the blink of an eye. That sounds like a psyop.
I mean, really, part of it for me, when they announced their own chain and it was kind of unclear, like I feel like it's been a slow bleed since then. And really seeing Larry Fink and BlackRock saying, well, we're working on our own solutions that may, you know, like that may include Ondo, it may not. I think most people have exposure to Ondo because of their close affiliation with BlackRock, but all it takes is BlackRock coming out and saying, yeah, we're doing this, and you know, we'll see if Ondo survives. I do think RWA, hot niche, will be relevant. Ondo is not something I hold a ton of. Obviously, you guys all know Josh. We called him Ondo Man. He is a huge holder of Ondo. I'm sure he's still holding Ondo. I have not looked at it recently to have an updated thesis, but not one of my top altcoins. I'm basically Bitcoin and DeFi. I did want to mention this. I did see this come through multi-sig. Swap 3 Bitcoin for Link this month. I feel dumb. I can understand. I did, you know, it's very tough when you swap Bitcoin for altcoins and then you see altcoins perform negatively. Right. You know, it's a tough timing window. I did the same thing earlier this year. I swapped a lot of Bitcoin for altcoins. I'm not up on it yet, but I'm not necessarily down bad on it yet either. I'm kind of maybe 10% down on some of those altcoins compared to Bitcoin. But again, the plan is to use altcoins to get more Bitcoin, but you really got to nail that timing when you're trying to do that.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I'm so excited because it's near Halloween, and me and Kelly Kellum are planning an incredible show here today. Check it out. TJ, what say you? Can me and Kelly do this?
Absolutely. That's going to be your Halloween costume?
Yeah, I'm Murtaugh.
Riggs and Murtaugh, yeah.
Riggs and Murtaugh. Right?
I love it. I love it. Because you got the bullet going. That's perfect.
I mean, you know, I don't even have to dress up. Kelly is going to have to dress up a little bit. Okay. He's going to have to make some changes to make this happen. We're going to make it happen. It's going to be huge, but
that's great. Let us who yeah, exactly. That's what somebody's at. Who's doing that
It's
one?
Kelly. It's clearly unless he grows a mullet in time, right?
You
And
know,
he's kind of got that look. He's got like,
Kelly's the one who can actually kind of pull it off. He's just so charismatic and
Yeah.
he'd have funny things to say. So
yeah.
what a time to be alive. Let us know in the chat. Let us know what are you celebrating Halloween? What is your Halloween costume? I had a funny I'll have to find it. I saw a funny thing on that was basically like girlfriend's biggest concern right now, biggest problem right now. What is her Halloween costume going to be? Boyfriend's biggest concern right now. He just lost 70% of his net worth in the last week, and he's trying to cope with that. So, guys, when, I will say, humor is great if you're down bad. If you need some solace or just want to hang out with us, that's what we're here for. We do this every single day. We're in Discord all the time. If you want a little community to talk with and ask questions, we'll see you guys. Yeah, DC had a good run. So yeah, okay. Maybe chat says don't do it. Chat says don't do it. Maybe just wear a mask or something.
Okay, I'll do it on Rumble. Okay, it's going out somewhere. I think it's going out somewhere.
Riggs makes total sense. You've got the look. Maybe do what was it? The other guys with Will Ferrell and Matt Damon. That would
that's
be
an option.
That's
an option as well. Oh Lord, Kelly Kellum. He's gonna. Let's get him up here. Oh wait, I gotta.
What do you got?
How you doing, Kelly? Are you ready for this? I mean, thoughts?
Well, I think I could pull off Riggs. I think the voice of reason. The steady hand. I mean, that's really what I'd want to embody. To really embody the character, you have to pull a Ted Danson or a Joy Behar to really do that.
All right, chat, tell us yes or no. Is this approved or disapproved? Will this get us canceled? Yeah. Well, this might get us banned off YouTube, but chat, yes or no to the Halloween costume. Should we rethink it? You could always do Tropic Thunder too. That's always an option.
I mean, come on, it's they can do it on TV 10 dancing right next to Whoopi Goldberg. Let's bring it back. You know what I mean?
I want to share one thing before we close the stream. Just a little bit of hope. Just a little bit of hope here, guys. Just a teeny weensy bit of hope. And that is this chart right here, everybody. We've been down. Remember, we, sub 30 on the fear and greed. Last time we hit 22, which is what we're at today. This says 53, but really this price action went down to 48K, and it went from 50s all the way up to 109 before getting another one of those bad fear readings. I think the market's doing everything possible to shake people out. And again, I've said this on the afternoon streams here on Discover. This 22 doesn't mean it has to rocket up immediately from here. We saw a lot of these, really fear shakeout movements before it ultimately persisted to the upside. The landscape's too damn bullish. I'm sort of betting my portfolio on it, and I'm betting, I've kind of been very, very, very bullish in terms of this price action. If we get a bit deeper, hey, we're only at a 17% correction. We saw 11 of those back in 2017. So what are we doing here, man? Buy the dip. And the other thing I wanted to share is this. Where is it at? This guy right here. We hold these truths to be self-evident, these liquidations, that all undue risks will be given hitherto thy exchanges and patient players. So be patient. If you're going to take liquidation risk and, leverage, just know that the market's trying to shake you out. So do it smart.
There you go. And that's all we got, guys. Kelly and Drew will be back with Market Close later today. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. Don't forget to touch grass. Don't forget there's more to life than just money and profits and portfolios. Call your moms. Say something nice. Do something for somebody today. We'll see you guys. We just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor, Arculus. They are a cold storage hardware wallet, helps you secure all of your digital assets for the future. Just tap this thing to the back of your phone and boom, you're in. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, but also wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the Disco fam. You've supported us a lot over the years. If you want to support the channel now, just use the code DC20. It gets you 20% off this card. It's the #1 way you can support this channel going forward. Thank you for your support. We'll see you at the top.